Hiya. This is about my experience with an NHS ME Clinic. I was referred to my local NHS ME Clinic by my GP, and within a few weeks I had an appointment at a local hospital with an occupational therapist. I had already filled out a detailed form about my level of physical and mental health, which I'd already received in the post. The woman I saw, she was very nice. She took ME very seriously as a physical illness. I was given a timetable to fill in about my activity, which I did during the day, which we discussed on my next appointment, where it was pointed out that I was doing too much activity for too long a period. The advice given was mainly about pacing, with some information about diet, sleep, and generally things I already knew. Every few months I'd have an appointment, and then after a year I would fill out a form about if I'd improved or not, and whether I should continue treatment or be discharged. And this went on for about 4 years, and during that time I deteriorated, where I had to spend more and more time in bed, eventually becoming bedridden about 95% of the time, my symptoms being very severe and frightening with bouts of paralysis. Now, when I became bedridden, the ME Clinic arranged for an occupational therapist to call on me at home. Although she was experienced with dealing with the housebound, she was totally out of her depth with me. She said that she'd never seen anyone as ill, which I didn't find very encouraging. She also said that she didn't understand why I wasn't getting better with all the rest I had, which shows a real lack of understanding of the illness. Nigel asked to see the evidence that the ME Clinic's approach actually worked, but she was unable to provide any, even though she said it was available. She said she would arrange for me to have vitamin D tests and would look at my recent blood tests, which all came back normal. She gave me printouts about diet, sleep, activity, that sort of thing, and said that she would send out an action plan for me through the post. Now, I was so looking forward to this action plan and to her help, but what I received through the post made me cry. Her pacing schedule had me get up and go downstairs at 8:30 in the morning to make myself some toast, bearing in mind that I didn't have a stair lift at that point. She then wanted me to rest for 15 minutes and then do some more activity and then rest for 15 minutes, and so it went on like that. And there's no way I could do what she suggested. However, to show willing, I did sit up at an open window for 10 minutes every day, as she'd asked me to do, as well as sit downstairs for a little bit every day. Now, I managed this for 2 weeks. And then I had a major crash and haven't been downstairs since her advice in September 2011. It came to a point that I was too ill to have her come and visit me, so our appointments became telephone calls. She wasn't able to give me any more advice, nor did she give me much in the way of emotional support or coping strategies. At one point she said she could refer me to an inpatients unit in Ward 40 in Leeds, in the Leeds Hospital Psychiatric Department, where severe ME patients are treated. However, she said she didn't know much about it, and she said the journey would be far too strenuous for me, it being about 70 miles away. I've actually done a video about Ward 40, and there are interesting comments below the video from ME sufferers who have actually been there. The phone calls from the occupational therapist, which was supposed to be once a week, gradually got further apart, and at one time 6 months passed before I heard from her. At one point she referred me to the local charity ME North East, but eventually she discharged me, saying that I'd had enough help. ME North East offered to send someone out to see me, to give me some support, but I was far too ill by that time. Instead, they arranged for a counsellor to ring me. Now, this woman, she was very nice, but was also out of her depth with me and had very little experience of anyone at my level of illness. She was supposed to ring me a couple of times a week, and when she did, it sometimes sounded like she was cooking her tea or something, and was often quite distracted. she also kept forgetting to ring, eventually stopping ringing altogether. I was told my severity of ME was rare by the ME Clinic and by my GP. It's not rare. Very severe ME is on the increase. And however, rare or not, that was a very frightening and unhelpful thing to say to me. I then asked my GP if she would refer me to the Yorkshire Fatigue Clinic in York, because I heard it was excellent. So funding was applied for. I had to wait a year for the funding and I was refused. I then had a phone call from the local ME clinic, the occupational therapist I'd first seen at the hospital. Now, she said that the Yorkshire Fatigue Clinic was their rival in funding, and they wanted to keep the funding within the county, so they wouldn't support my application there. It was to be their treatment or no treatment at all. I had also come across information about ME that I was putting into practice that was helpful and working, and I was improving on it. And when I offered to send this information to the ME clinic, they refused it. I did send them a DVD about severe ME, but I had no reply. So all the ME clinic did for me was to block my funding and to make me worse. The approach by the NHS ME clinics do vary from county to county. That's if an area has one at all. Not all will do home visits, so many with severe ME will slip through the net, being non-existent on these ME clinics' records. Some clinics can be helpful, and often they have advice on activity pacing. They are also known to use cognitive behaviour therapy and graded exercise therapy. Now, my advice would be to take what you find helpful, but if they ask you to do something which you are unsure of, or you're completely in your rights to refuse, they aren't the experts. You probably know more than they do. I mean, I personally feel that they provide a token service. They seem to refuse to accept the enormity of the disease and won't budge from their viewpoint, some of which is damaging. However, they are worth a try, and they might give you some information and advice which you may find helpful. Now, if any of you have had dealings with ME clinics, it'd be really helpful if you could comment below. I might not be able to reply, but I'm sure many others would appreciate your experience and if they've helped you in any way. Well, thank you for listening to all this. Bye for now.